Nyanza and Western provinces. And then I want us to get a brief overview of how these interactions between these three factors are actually affecting the coping ability of the youth within this region. And we want to question ourselves whether the green energy is the possible way forward. I wanted to quote from what the earlier presenter pointed out, and that is say that a lot of our people are now surviving. And I wish I would have stood by her side to also say something in regard to that. But survival is actually an indication of our ability to cope. And when a lot of us and a lot of people from these areas have resigned to what we call fate, and the resignation to the fate has been caused largely by all these factors: poverty, environmental degradation, and HIV/AIDS. So that now people are just doing things to survive. They are no longer looking into what are the pros, what are the cons of doing whatever we want to do, or what is the what are the moral representation. I want to define coping ability as a measure of economic, and we also go along the way to now include the community to adverse events. So when you look at all this medical and the social, and then there's now the physical toughness of a person in response to any kind of adverse event. And that is how we define coping ability within the context of my presentation. And then I'm now going to say that the coping ability is usually affected by the social capital and the individual capital somebody has. Now, if you look at Western Kenya region, we have the highest HIV prevalence. Nyanza province is leading with 14.9%, Western province is leading by 5.4%, and this was Kenya AIDS Indicator Survey 2009. And you look at the Western Kenya region has a population of nearly 10 million, which is representing 25% of the total population in the country. Now, I hope you will excuse me because my presentation is not within the context of Kisumu, but because my program is covering the entire Western Kenya region, but Kisumu is our base. Now, looking at these statistics, unemployment is at 50%, while the poverty index is at 63% in Western Kenya region. Now, looking at that kind of sad statistic, you will notice that a lot of household spendable income on accessing energy. Very sad. Now, I wanted to give you an overview based on the census of 2009. Nyanza province, the number of males and the number of females, vis-a-vis this is total. We're having about 9.7 million people as per 2009. And these people are residing in about 2.2 million households. Now, if you look at what IFC did in 2008, look at where Nyanza we are in terms of poverty index and Western province. So in the whole of Kenya, with Central being a poverty index of 31%, and Nyanza where we are, it gives a very sorry state of events. Now, if you look at the economic activity in Western Kenya region vis-a-vis at national level, you will see that the people who are seeking work, and of course in terms of those who are employed, we have about averagely 49%, and in Kenya total is about 48%. But a lot of our youth are falling either here or here. They are economically inactive, and we are talking about 40% of the population in Western Kenya region are economically inactive. This is as per census of 2009, and I will tell you for free that nothing has changed between 2009 and today. So the statistics are either higher or lower than the figures that I'm projecting here. Now, how then do we relate all these issues, the HIV, poverty, and the environmental degradation, to coping ability? We are saying that the effects of HIV results in increased reliance on natural resources and accelerated environmental degradation. What do we mean by this? Though this kind of relationship is self-reinforcing, but what we are finding out is that when somebody is infected, not even with HIV only, but any other kind of disease, then his coping ability is greatly reduced. And when this person's coping ability is reduced, and we are talking about his physical toughness is now reduced, his ability to look for income is now reduced, and his ability to relate socially with other people is also actually reduced, then this person will rely on the natural ecosystem for him to survive. So that this is one person, if he has a tree in his homestead, for him to get access to energy, he'll try to fell that tree so that he can access energy. And what is he doing in the process? The moment the tree is cut down, he has his moment of making his meal for that day. But what happens when he wakes up the following day? The tree is no longer there. The environment around his homestead is going to be degraded. And as the degradation continues, his condition worsens. So you can see that cycle is becoming continuous and self-reinforcing. Because he is, and then it can start either way. Either environmental degradation can increase to prevalence of HIV, or HIV/AIDS can increase prevalence to environmental degradation. Why am I saying this? Now, if you look at scenarios where environment has greatly been degraded, you realize that I will look at a practical example of the village where I come from. The village where I come from in South Nyanza, we are very proud Luos, actually. They always say that Luos from South Nyanza are very fertile. Why? we live at the neighborhood with the Kisi Highlands. So that means we enjoy one of the best weather all year round. So it means we are able to do cropping twice in a year. That means that we have food better part of the year. That is a different scenario in central Nyanza, and especially in Kisumu and these other areas. They only do cropping once in a year. The kind of the climatic conditions does not allow them to do cropping twice in a year. But what happens there? What happened when I was a young man growing up? Some guys somewhere decided to cut down some trees that were around the mountain. Next to the village where I come from, there's a very huge mountain. So this somebody out of his own personal greed cut down the trees, and what happened therefore is that it became almost difficult for us to do cropping twice in a year. The weather erratically changed, and therefore what happened that we could no longer depend on agriculture. So a lot of us became desperate to survive. So in our response in surviving, a number of us moved to cities to look for jobs. A number of us moved to other urban areas to look for better ways of looking for getting income. And then eventually what you now notice is that when the environment gets degraded, the coping ability of an individual becomes reduced. His resilience to changes become greatly reduced. So a lot of us had to move, and what happens when most of us move from the village, and they call us the learned, we leave the villagers to the village, and what happens there is that there is nothing that can ever take place. I'm actually summarizing most of the slides. That's why I can see you're still stuck to this other slide. But then at least I can say that I've summarized up to slide number. Yeah, I think we can start it from there. Now, looking at it as a young man at the university before I just graduated in 2005, we said that a lot of our learned people come out of the villages, but then they're not willing to go back to the villages to share with them the knowledge they have so that they can spur economic development from the village. So we said that what is it that we can do that can help the young people in the village without necessarily coming up with the attitude of the NGO. You know, a lot of NGOs came to Kisumu and they were dishing out handouts. A lot of people now became very reliant. But then we say, how do we get back to the community and engage them, make them become process owners in developing themselves, so that the responsibility of developing them largely lies with them. Then we say that green energy is one of the ways that we can move forward. Looking at Western Kenya region, Kisumu, for instance, Kisumu County is receiving about, in terms of solar, it's receiving about 4 to 6 kilowatts per hour per day. That is equivalent to 11 million tons of oil. What does that mean? Just a square meter of land in Kisumu in a whole day receives the sun energy that can be converted to about 11 million tons of oil. So we are sitting on a gold mine, but a lot of us are not realizing that. So we say that we need to find a way of dealing with green energy. And the only way we can do this is by making our people, especially the young people, that there is a business opportunity in the green energy sector, and we can really work on this and change all these statistics. If you look at currently now, 62% of our people are using tin lamp. 62%, and I gave these statistics per Kisii, Kisumu, Migori, Nyamira, and you can see where Kisumu is. Kisumu, we are here in terms of tin lamp. It is still being used today. This is very serious statistics. And when we are talking about increased indoor pollution, we are talking about increased upper respiratory infection. So these statistics are killing. Now, next slide. That just gives you Western Province now. And then the next, there's another side. Yeah, this is one of the effects of very serious 31%, while 1% of the people are relying on fuel wood. So, ladies and gentlemen, just rush to the next slide. Next one. So why do we need to focus on the young people? We have the numbers, we have the knowledge, and it is now going to be upon us to make sure that we take Kisumu and the people around Kisumu towards bringing sustainable development. And we are saying that it is now going to be a responsibility of us to make sure that Kisumu is a green city. We are the only millennium city in the world. And that now gives us a very big name. We have to work towards the adoption of green energies. And then that's just the next slide. As I conclude, I want to conclude by saying those things. I know most of you are reading, and I don't want to say more to avoid contradiction. But then, after having said that, I want you to go to the next slide. This is the question that we always ask ourselves. That a lot of the problems and the bad behaviors have been, we are trying to say poverty is doing this, poverty is doing this. But then somebody asked me in one forum, does financial independence amongst the young people, does it really contribute towards behavior change? Are we something you can ponder about? My time is up, and I want to stop there without saying much.